This book was considered dangerous by the Catholic Church, but it was never actually banned. The title of this video is clickbait. I know, but there's a reason for that. In 1670, the French philosopher Blaise Pascal published a book that was unlike any other book ever written. It was not a novel, not an academic treatise, not a collection of essays, and yet it managed to sell out in its first edition. It contains one of the most powerful arguments for the existence of God, but also one of the most chilling warnings about what happens after we die. And yet, strangely enough, its argument is not addressed to believers at all, but to non-believers. This book is called Orthos, and here are its most shocking secrets. No. 1. There are only 2 possible options. Pascal begins his book with these famous words. There are 2 paths of life which the free will of man can follow. Either he is born to seek out and adore the true God, or to seek pleasure and ignore the Creator. He goes on to say that the true God is either infinitely good or infinitely evil, or both. And if you don't believe in him, then you have made a bet. And that bet can go one of only 2 ways. If God exists and you didn't believe in him, you lose everything. Or if God doesn't exist, you gain nothing. In fact, you lose even more, because if there was no God, then there would be no heaven. So your choice is this: believe in God and win heaven, or don't believe in God and win nothing. That's a pretty stark choice. But hold on, because it gets even worse. Let's pretend you decide to believe in God, but you're not sure how far you need to take this belief. You don't want to go overboard. So you pick some small version of Christianity that you think won't cause too much trouble. You might think to yourself, I'm not going to worry about original sin or the Trinity or the divinity of Christ, or whether Jesus really rose from the dead. I just need to believe that God exists and that he wants me to be good. Well, Pascal says that's not good enough. According to him, if you don't believe in all of Christianity, then you have in fact rejected the possibility of God altogether, and so you lose everything. Pascal was very clear that he wasn't referring to any particular sect of Christianity. He said, all the religions of the earth, natural and revealed, may be distinguished by their promises. All of them offer happiness, but happiness in different degrees, which depend upon the greatness of the rewards promised. Natural religion promises beatitude in heaven. The Christian religion promises beatitude in paradise. Other religions promise happiness in the company of the good and the virtue. The stakes are high, Pascal tells us, because the price of losing the bet is infinite. As he put it, what could you not give to have this certainty? Now, before you jump to the next point, I would like to hear from you. What do you think about Pascal's wager? Do you agree with him that the choice is between believing in all of Christianity or believing in none of it? What do you think about the stakes that he's identified? Let me know in the comments below. And while you're there, make sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any of our future videos. 2. How can we possibly justify not believing in God? Pascal now turns his attention to those who don't believe in God and asks them to explain why they don't believe. They tell him that they don't believe because they haven't seen God. To which Pascal replies, they are wrong, for they have seen him in a mirror. And the sight has been thus far only partial, but it will be clear and distinct one day. Pascal is talking about what philosophers call the teleological argument for God's existence. You look around you and you see order and purpose and design and complexity, and you conclude that there must be a designer. Now imagine that you were a butterfly who experienced the world through touch alone, and one day you stumble upon a human hand. You feel the lines on the palm, the ridges on the fingers, the thumb that opposes the other 4 digits, the shape of the nails. You feel the whole thing in its intricate complexity, and you ask yourself, who made this? A fellow butterfly replies, don't be silly. Things just happen to be this way. There's no designer. You ask another butterfly and he tells you the same thing. And another and another and another. For the rest of your life, You feel the hand over and over again, and each time you ask about its designer, you get the same answer. Don't be silly. Things just happen to be this way. Now you're dying, and you find yourself standing in front of the pearly gates. St. Peter opens up the book of life, looks at your name, and says, "I'm sorry, you're not in." And you ask him why, and he tells you, you refuse to believe in the hand that made the handprint. That is what Pascal means when he says that those who don't believe in God have seen him in a mirror. He is also saying that we cannot rely on the testimony of other people who don't believe in God. We cannot trust what Pascal calls the all too common opinion that God is not here, that he does not speak anymore, that he reveals nothing anymore. He says, if you consider the matter carefully, you will find that what men commonly say on this subject is all of it a lie. At this point, Pascal's argument has two implications for atheists. First, they cannot appeal to their own lack of evidence for believing in God, because Pascal says that the evidence is all around them. Second, they cannot appeal to the testimony of other non-believers, because Pascal says that those people are lying. Now, Pascal turns his attention to believers, and he warns them that they might still lose the bet, because there are several ways to misunderstand what it means to believe in God. 3. Don't be a Christian without being a Christian. Pascal says there are 3 ways to misunderstand what it means to believe in God. First, he warns us against being a Christian without being a Christian. He says, a Christian is not someone who says he is. He is someone who believes in God and acts accordingly. We cannot simply claim to be Christians in name only, or we will lose the bet. Number 4, don't be a Christian without being a mathematician. Pascal urges us to think of God in terms of mathematical certainty. He says the truths of faith are separate from and yet prior to the truths of mathematics. They are believed on no other grounds than that they are believed. Since they are known to be true by divine revelation, they have not been demonstrated mathematically and cannot be, and there is no demonstration of God except his word. You must therefore believe in God because he has spoken. Think of it like this. Pascal says, if you wanted to prove to someone that 2 plus 2 igual a 4, you couldn't start from the premise that 2 plus 2 equals 4. And then use logic to conclude that 2 plus 2 equals 4. That would be circular reasoning. Rather, you would have to start from some other known truth, perhaps something more fundamental than arithmetic, and then use logic to arrive at the conclusion that 2 plus 2 equals 4. Similarly, Pascal tells us that we cannot demonstrate the existence of God using reason alone. Rather, we must start from some other known truth, namely Scripture, and then use logic to conclude that God must exist. Pascal says we know the truth of faith by divine revelation, and we cannot demonstrate it otherwise because the truths of faith are the foundation of mathematics. And no, don't be a Christian without being a poet. Pascal challenges Christians to take a step back and admire the beauty of God's creation and realize that this beauty points to the existence of a beautiful God. He says, the eternal God has scattered pieces of himself throughout the whole universe and thus created beauty. Pascal was not only a mathematician, he was also a poet, and he understood that poetry is an attempt to capture this beauty and bring it closer to God. In his own life, he tried to do exactly that. In his Pensées, he wrote poems and stories and reflections on the nature of love and death and the human condition. And all of these works pointed towards God, because Pascal believed that beauty itself is a kind of prayer. Here is the bottom line. In order to win Pascal's bet, we must be Christians in the fullest sense of the word. We must believe in God, and we must act accordingly. We must start with mathematical certainty, and we must finish with poetic wonder. In other words, we must believe in God, and we must show that belief through our actions. And if we do that, then we will win heaven. But if we don't, then we will win nothing. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please share it with your friends. Also, We've recently launched our podcast. You can listen to the audio version of this episode and other exclusive content. Check it out through the link in the description. Thank you for watching. See you soon.